and feels a little bit more well-refreshed than I do today, but that's fine. I don't know anything about what he's been talking about in here for 3 days. I didn't have the app going, and I wasn't paying close attention to what Bulldog was doing. No offense to anyone these last couple of days, but I think there's two interesting things about where we're at with the Bills right now. And there's probably more than that. James Cook leads the NFL in rushing. That's something else. That's kind of awesome and amazing. Um, there are a couple things that I've been thinking about, though, the most. One is thinking about, beating Cleveland like they did. It's really been kind of one narrative all year with them, generalizing a little bit, or maybe more than a little bit. And that is, well, they're not always that impressive. And it's not hard to find concerns. But they're 11-4 now. Just like we're used to for years running, they almost always win. And that's where we're at, which is another season where they look like they're capable of getting there, but they're not perfect. Like, they're not a team. They've had better teams than this, I think. Starting with defense. They've had better teams than this that have, lost ultimately. So it's interesting to me that it has kind of stayed in that lane almost all season, even when they were, all the way to week 1. 41-40. Down big late. Josh Allen annoyed that fans left. Sorry. Some of us has to work in the morning. It's a school night. That hadn't left him as recently as that whatever game it was, Cincinnati, I guess, where he had it on his mind when he walked into the press conference to mention that he was happy the fans didn't abandon the Bills. Imagine if that happened. So all the way back to week 1. Fun, awesome, wow. And then it's the Jets, who they were no match for the Bills in week 2. Miami and New Orleans, home games, going back to before the season started. It's look at this schedule. If you beat the Ravens, it might be a long time before they lose. Bulldog and I even had 17-0 talk here and there and tried to get away with that before getting hit in the head. So Miami and New Orleans are closer games where you're maybe asking the same questions. And really the whole season has been kind of this. They've had a couple of other Pittsburgh, eventually, I guess I want to say, they've had a couple of other really impressive wins, but also some bad losses. And the questions about what they really are have been persistent. And I'm assuming that beating Cleveland 23-20 didn't really change that or help take the stress off this. But, is what it is. This is a point about the talking. And the talking this year has been very consistent, I think, overall. Okay, well, they're live, and who else would you rather be? I don't know. But really, there are concerns. I think that's still true, is it not? 803-0550. Interesting to me how that has really not wavered. Those losses to Atlanta and Miami and Houston had me at everything is wrong. Nothing is working. Can't protect Allen. He's taking a beating. They're getting run right through. Had a little bit of that on the game on Sunday too. At times with the Browns early, Judkins goes out, and that might have meant a lot in the end. But there's still these. Can they get open? Wide receiver receptions, all of it. That's just sort of been the same all season. And here we are, Christmas Eve, and it's still sort of that. It's right there in that lane. I think the most interesting conversation or debate to have right now about them is how to play these two games coming up. The stakes. Is there a range of opinion on this, or is everybody kind of just pedal down? And it's really hard to use injuries, even though we kind of usually do it, as a mechanism for this, because we don't break ties if you want to be more conservative or aggressive, guys who are 50-50 health-wise or whatever the odds would be, if I'm being aggressive because the game is everything to me, then they play. You hear coaches say, oh, if it was a playoff game, they would have played, things like that, or just, the opposite. But you don't know exactly how the player is feeling. You just sort of have to settle for what they tell us. And it's usually not very specific. But you've got this Eagles game on Sunday. I predicted this all year since the schedule came out. The one thing about the schedule that disappointed me the most was that I think the league might have wasted Philadelphia at Buffalo by making it so late. And I think I was right. I think this game, of course, there is still something to play for, and there's always seedings. And that's part of the conversation here. I would also like to hear that from you, is how important you think the 5 versus the 6 is, for example. That might have gotten more pronounced this week. The Ravens are almost dead, and Jacksonville looked so good. That could still also be Houston at 3. So I wonder if in the last few days there's been a lot of 5 is way more important than 6 talk, and that's just the first round. But Philadelphia-Buffalo could have been a beauty in the middle of the season, and this is just okay because the Eagles are all set in their, playoff positioning, and the Bills are not all set, but it's pretty likely where this is going to end up. They still need that Patriots loss. That seems kind of hard to imagine, but they still need that to move into a home game or even a bye week. That's still possible, I think, but not likely enough for me to bother figuring out permutations or whatever. So that's where I think we're at, and I wonder if you think the stadium piece in this is relevant to how it gets played. And that's really if we get to next week and the Bills are whatever they are, 5, 6. I mean, if they're live for the AFC East, there's no discussion. If New England loses to the Jets and the Bills beat Philadelphia, maybe even if they have to tie them because of the Baltimore result. If they're tied next week because the Eagles or the Patriots rather have lost to the Jets, then there's no discussion. Of course you're the favorite at that point because it's the Jets at home and the Bills would be massive favorites. They will be anyway, massive favorites in that game if it matters to them. And that would be it absolutely 100% mattering to them, that scenario. If it isn't that, then what do you want to do? And does the fact that it's the last game there matter to this? Or, probably. Of course, there's the possibility of a home playoff game as a wild card, but that rarely happens. So what do you want to do? Does that matter to you how to play Week 18? The one thing I've said about this is, again, I did this on Purple Insider this morning, which I don't think is out yet. It might be. I doubt it matters to Sean McDermott. I don't think, and it probably shouldn't. Sean McDermott knows that game is the last regular season game ever to be played there. But is he really supposed to change whatever his plan might be for that game based on that? I don't think I'd want him to. Not that I'd necessarily agree with whatever he's going to do, but I don't think I'd want to hear that, well, it was the last game at the stadium, so we thought we would play. Because now we're talking like in preseason terms, where the one thing that can be bad for you is a bad injury. But, where it's at home or it's kids' day or just whatever it is that might make you want to mitigate that. So for me, the stakes are up there as a big conversation about them, even if it is a little bit premature, because we still have this game on Sunday to get to first. The Steelers, the Jaguars, the Chargers, and Texans who meet on Saturday. Lots to talk about here. Denver loses, New England rallies to win. What are you seeing in the AFC? 803-0550 for your calls. I mentioned Dave Tripoli coming up. We'll talk Eagles with him. Sal Capaccio will join me at 5.